Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. We are currently in the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, so here are the biggest stories right now in Barcelona. This week we take a look at the fallout to the controversial Monaco Grand Prix last weekend, the rumours that there is a rift between Max and Jos Verstappen, and we review all of the action from qualifying yesterday in Spain. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you are most interested in. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So a question that a lot of people are wondering after the Monaco Grand Prix is what to do with it. What to do with this two-stop rule which did not work as intended at all. I would say that the race was marginally more entertaining than what we've been used to in recent times, but overall it didn't work as intended. You had drivers completely slowing down and holding the pack up just so their teammate in front of them could do several pit stops, those two mandated pit stops. A lot of people are saying that Monaco should just get off the calendar. I respectfully disagree with that. I think you have to have Monaco on the Formula 1 calendar. It is a part of Formula 1. It's like having Formula 1 without Ferrari. It just doesn't feel right. It just has to be there. But that doesn't mean we can't try and improve it. That something can't change to actually try and make the racing action better, more racing action. But the root cause of a lot of these problems is, of course, that the cars are so big and heavy these days. You know, that's the inherent problem. And you can put whatever rules you want in front of Formula 1 drivers and Formula 1 teams. Of course, the root of all the problems is the fact that the cars are just so damn big. But what has been suggested? What have the drivers and people around Formula 1 been saying about this? I got the full story here on the F1Chronicle.com. As always. Formula 1 figures are once again scratching their heads about what to do about the dubious spectacle of the Monaco Grand Prix. After the particularly processional and slow 2024 edition, this year's Grand Prix on the tight, twisty streets of the Principality was a mandatory two-stopper. It was worse, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff admitted. I mean, his team had an absolute nightmare, so I suppose he would say that, really. World champion Max Verstappen laughed to Viaplay. Very exciting. I really enjoyed it. Really great. Maybe we should make it 3 pit stops next year, or 4 or 5. At least the team would then get some pit stop practice. I mean, I could have done a 4 pit stop and still finished 4th, said the Red Bull driver. For us, it didn't matter at the front of the field. Indeed, while the top runners had an actual race, the rest of the field was either deliberately slowing big trains of trailing cars or stuck in those trains. George Russell even skipped over the harbour chicane to get past Alex Albon's mobile chicane, copping a 30-second penalty. He was given a drive-through penalty for that. I thought it was hilarious how Russell was like, yeah, you know what? I cut across the chicane. I admit it. What are you going to do about it? Give him a drive-through. Give him a massive penalty for that. So unfortunately, yeah, it didn't really work out for him. I was outside the points anyway, and I just wanted to enjoy pushing hard in Monaco, he said. The irony is that I did 25 qualifying laps in the race and finished higher than if I hadn't taken the penalty. So the system is flawed, said Russell. I agree with that. The penalty thing is ridiculous because you've got drivers who will actively take a 5 or a 10-second penalty to get ahead and get track position because they can go faster. They can, they can eliminate those penalties effectively by 5-10 laps of clean running. Nico Hülkenberg agreed with Russell. I appreciate that something was tried this year with the two-stopper, but it clearly didn't work. Not at all. There were a lot of strategic things going on, but it didn't have much to do with racing. Carlos Sainz told DAZN, I'm very upset with the race and the sport in general. 15 years ago there were penalties for manipulating the races, but now the whole race is being manipulated, he said. I hated going slowly, but Liam Lawson put us last and second to last, and it had to be done. So with many feeling that the mandatory two-stop approach failed, what is next? Maybe we can throw out bananas like in Mario Kart, Verstappen joked. You can't race here anyway, so it doesn't matter what you do. 1 stop, 10 stops. I think with the cars we have now, you can only overtake a Formula 2 car around here. Pole sitter and race winner Lando Norris is among those who thinks that Formula 1 should simply stop trying to make the on-track action more exciting on Monaco Sundays. I think it should be the person who drives the best race and deserves to win, he said. I don't even know why people have such high expectations. I mean, it's not just a show to entertain people, it's sports. Correct. Verstappen was actually the race leader until very late on, delaying his second pit stop in the hope of a red flag and a free pit stop. I'm sure if we keep this going in the future, eventually a result like that will happen, said Oscar Piastri. But is that what we want to see? Not really, no. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner thinks the only solution would be to actually go and change the Monaco layout. We should try to create a braking zone at the end of the tunnel, or in the first corner, he said. The cars are so big these days that there's no chance of getting past an opponent, Horner added. Wolf suggested perhaps we need to introduce something like a maximum lap time so that certain opponents don't get tactically lucky. Albon, one of the deliberate laggards on Sunday, apologised to spectators afterwards and agreed with Horner that F1 and Monaco should think about tweaking the layout. McLaren boss Andrea Stella commented, "What we need are smaller and lighter cars." Racing Bull CEO Peter Byatt was among the tricky tactical masterminds on Sunday, but he insists the F1 Commission thought long and hard about the new two-stop rule. "I can't really think of anything," he told Sky Deutschland when asked what F1's move should be. "If the track doesn't allow for any changes, the only approach is to intervene here was through the regulations. There are other ideas like only using soft tyres or the C6, but at the end of the day, the reality is that you can't overtake it. No matter how fast you are, you can't get past these big cars. The Monaco weekend is obviously incredibly important for the teams and for Formula One. The fans, our partners, love it, and we have to try and improve the sporting aspect." Wolf, meanwhile, concluded by suggesting Monaco should simply remain unique and that the most overtaken obsessed critics should take their racing glasses off once per season. Hulkenberg concluded 99% of the people in Monaco are here to drink champagne on a yacht. They don't really care. Nico, are you suggesting that people are just hanger-oners and they want to just be a part of the Monaco weekend rather than actually care about the racing? No, that doesn't happen, especially at Monaco. That is a very derogatory thing you said, Mr. Hulk. I don't like that. But no, he's absolutely spot on. I mean, you get it at every racing venue. You know, you get it at every race where you've got the VIPs, you know, drinking champagne, schmoozing around, you know, networking, that horrible word. But it's true, that's what they do, and you're going to get them. But I imagine at Monaco, to be fair, it's on steroids. There'll be a lot more of them. But, you know, I think the problem is, there's two problems, really, and you can solve it. You can solve the overtaking problem by addressing either of them. Either changing a layout, I don't know, maybe get rid of the Neuville chicane. But how dangerous would that be, though? How dangerous would getting rid of that be? That would be horrific, to be honest with you. There'd be some huge... I mean, we saw Pierre Gasly. Admittedly, it was because he was braking, but you could still get some really nasty accidents coming out of the tunnel, I think, if you get rid of the chicane there. There's not really a lot you can do with a layout. You can change that, potentially, but... that's tough. And then there's the cars. The car's the ultimate problem. But overtaking around Monaco was so difficult. I mean, when was the last time that Formula One cars were small enough and didn't have enough aerodynamic performance to make overtaking at Monaco feasible? Maybe the 80s, maybe the early 90s or so. But, you know, look at Mansell trying to overtake Ayrton Senna in 1992. Around any other circuit he would have got past. So I think really you're talking about the mid-80s by the last time that Formula One cars were small enough to be able to make that a reality. But guys, I value your input on this as always. I want to hear what you have to say about this in the comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always if you want to see more like this. And yeah, I think the ultimate problem is just that the cars are too big. And I don't think they're going to be able to change the layout. But Formula One needs Monaco. It just does. It's part of the calendar. Whether the racing action is bad or not, that's another discussion. But I think overall, it's here to stay, and it should stay, but that's my opinion. I know not everybody shares it with me. I never like reading about stuff like this. People are reporting on Jos Verstappen and Max Verstappen. Apparently there's been a bit of a rift between father and son. Jos has come out and denied these rumours. So let's have a look at what's been said here, guys. Like I said, I don't like reading about stuff like this. You know, father and son's not getting on for whatever reason, but let's have a look at why people are speculating about this, and I'll give my thoughts at the end in the comments below as always, because I'm sure some people will be bringing up the allegations about Max Verstappen's upbringing, and I will not be commenting on them during this video, but you know the ones I'm talking about. Those are allegations that, as far as I'm aware, are unproven. I haven't seen any concrete evidence personally of that, and I hope they are not the case, obviously, because again, it's rather nasty, but let's have a look what's been said here, guys. Jos Verstappen says that too much is being read into his absences from the Formula One paddock in 2025. Since Max's father became deeply embroiled in the Christian Horner scandal at Red Bull last year, his face has rarely been seen inside the Red Bull garage. Some think the 53-year-old former F1 driver was told to keep his distance by Red Bull, while others think he may have even fallen out with his famous son. Verstappen Sr. is back in the paddock in Monaco, but it's his first F1 appearance since pre-season testing in Bahrain. Sometimes it might be good that I wasn't there, the Dutchman freely admitted to De Telegraaf. However, he insists there is nothing controversial about his absences. People make things up, said Jos. We talk every day and our bond is very strong, but Max has his own life, as do I. And I don't want to be a father who interferes with everything. Over the years, I've learned that you have to let things take their own course. Verstappen Sr. continued, it was also due to my rallying, which I really enjoy. Also, my wife has health problems, so I want to be there for her too. I think everybody knows that I find Formula 1 a less exciting environment than it used to be, Jos added. But the most important thing is that Max is in his place and everything is going as usual. I don't have to be there either. I can easily live without Formula 1. Well, there you go. I mean, that's it. That's it answered. You know, his wife's having health problems. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope she's feeling better soon. He's busy with his rallying, you know, just because he's not there all the time doesn't mean that he's had a bust up with his son. In fact, to be honest with you, if there is a conspiracy theory or an alternate theory about all this, it's more likely that Red Bull have been like, don't come here all the time after the whole Horner thing and, you know, Verstappen Sr., I should say, siding against Christian Horner. Horner's the CEO and the team principal of Red Bull Racing, so he has the power to do something like that if he chooses to do that. So I think that's much more likely than Jos and Max not getting on anymore, you know. It's a horrible thing to say that, you know, without any kind of facts. Like, oh yeah, they're clearly not getting on anymore, clearly. They must have a problem with each other. No, the man's just busy, you know, with other commitments. Traveling around the Formula 1, you know, kind of calendar for 24 races a year, going across 5 different continents. Must be exhausting. The man's in his 50s, you know? Yeah, relatively nothing to kind of go, that's a nothing story effectively. There's no kind of controversy there for me, but you guys let me know what you think about it in the comments below as always. So we have a new rule change coming in for this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix. Now, this was announced quite some time ago. It's a new technical directive relating to the flexibility of the bodywork of the front wing of Formula 1 cars. Now, why are they doing this? What is changing and what effect will it have on the grid? Well, I'm going to give all my thoughts in this video for you guys. Basically, what is changing is that Formula 1 is trying to stop what it calls excessive flexing of the front wing. This is something that we saw tested extensively during certain races last year, most notably during the Italian and Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The FIA is basically concerned about teams flexing their front wings too much and becoming a safety hazard as a result. So they're tightening the regulations when it comes to this. The FIA tests for this by putting a 1000 Newton load, which is basically a kilogram, in a downward direction at 2 points along the front wing. Now, before this weekend's Spanish Grand Prix, these wings could deflect, i.e. move, by up to 15 millimeters in a vertical direction. Now, before the Spanish Grand Prix this weekend, the FIA basically allowed a vertical deflection, i.e. how much the wing actually moves, by up to 15 millimeters when a 1 kilogram load was placed at one point and then 1 kilogram load was placed at another point. Overall, when only being placed on one side, up to 20 millimeters, 2 centimeters would be allowed. However, it's now changing. So when these loads are applied on 2 places on the front wing, you are only allowed a deflection of 10 millimeters, 1 centimeter, and when only being placed on one side, only 15 millimeters, 1.5 centimeters is allowed. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it is significant. It's basically meaning that the front wing has to be stronger under load. This is to simulate how much load is being placed on the front wing while at speed. Of course, when the cars are still, like when they're being tested, there is only a very small amount of air being pushed down upon them. But when they're going up 200 miles an hour down the straight, so much load is being pushed into the front wing. That's basically what generates downforce. But a downside of that is that force actually does deflect or move effectively the front wing down. And like I said at the start, the FIA is basically concerned that Formula 1 teams are going to make their wings unsafe by making them lighter just to allow them to deflect some more. It's a safety hazard in their mind. But there's another side to this as well, of course. It's the aerodynamic benefits, the so-called mini DRS effect. Now, this is something that's been raging for a long time in terms of the actual benefit that it gives. You know, we've seen camera angles that appear to show the rear wings, not the front wings, the rear wings in this case of the McLarens at Baku, opening up a little bit and giving a so-called mini DRS effect. It's basically where the bodywork of these wings flexes a little bit and allows a little opening in the elements, because you normally see quite a few different elements. I mean, I'll try and put a picture on the screen so you guys can see, just for an example, but you can see all these pieces effectively, all these building blocks effectively that make the front wing. These elements, when they are under stress, when they are being deflected, can actually open up and allow more airflow through them, reducing drag. Then when they slow down for the corner, they close up again, they undeflect, they go back to the more like the natural state, and therefore they actually do produce a lot of downforce. It's a bit of both worlds. Now, this does get into the territory allegedly of things like active aerodynamics, although it's not active aerodynamics in the most literal sense. You know, it's not like DRS where the driver presses a button and the wing opens up like that. It's something that's produced naturally by the airflow of the car, although some people say that it's not allowed, and this will effectively tighten up what is actually allowed when it comes to the strength and deflection that's allowed for these wings. And something else to note as well, that there is a new test being introduced for the Spanish Grand Prix as well. Before Spain, the rules said that any part of the trailing edge of any front wing flap may deflect no more than 5mm when measured along the loading axis, with a 60 Newton point load applied, and that is to be reduced to 3mm for this weekend. So again, a little change there. Now, again, you might be wondering, what effect is this going to have on the grid? Well, we don't really know, to be honest, until they get out on track, or at least they get into qualifying. It's very much speculated that McLaren are going to suffer a lot from this. This does feel to a lot of people like this is a technical directive that is aimed at reducing the advantage that McLaren have, but I don't think the main advantage for McLaren really is in their front wing. I think it's with their tyre wear, particularly over a Grand Prix distance. So it may hurt a lot of teams. It may hurt McLaren a little bit more than the others, but I don't think this is going to be the silver bullet for teams to be able to catch up in terms of the pace compared to McLaren, because overall I think they've got other advantages. I think the Mercedes engine's fantastic in the back of that car. I think the tyre wear that they are able to do is the biggest differentiating factor between them and the rest of the field. But there we go, guys. Those are my kind of thoughts on what is going on when it comes to this. It could hurt McLaren a little bit, but I don't think it's going to see them drop into the midfield or anything. I still think they're going to have a big advantage in the race, although maybe marginally a little less. This is a track, of course, Spain, where there are two long straights, so if it is going to have an effect, if it is going to be detrimental, this is going to be one of the tracks where it is going to hurt more than others. But we'll see what happens, guys. It could well hurt somebody else a lot more. Alpine apparently will be hurt quite badly by this, which would be a disaster for them because they're already terrible. So we'll see what happens. All right, guys, qualifying for the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix was completed earlier today around the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, a track where pole position is incredibly important. We see more pole sitters on average go on to win the race here than even places like Monaco. So it's extremely important to qualify well here. But who did well and who did not? Well, I'm going to go through the best and the worst from Saturday's running into the 5 things that we learned from qualifying for the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix. So, first of all, Yuki Tsunoda. Not a good day. Not a good day. You know, I'm willing to give the guy time. You know, I don't think that Red Bull chopping and changing their second driver is particularly helpful to both the drivers and the team. But yeah, today was kind of terrible, really. P20. Last. His teammate did a lot better, unsurprisingly. We'll speak about Verstappen very soon. But yeah, last of all, which is pretty embarrassing, really, for Tsunoda. I don't know why he was last. Just a lack of pace. That is the only reason I can give for that. He just couldn't get to grips with the car, at least. I mean, the car clearly has enough pace to qualify well. Verstappen qualified well inside the top 5 today, but Tsunoda was not only out in Q1, but dead last, which is unfortunately the kind of form that got Liam Lawson demoted. So, you know, especially with Isaac Hadjar doing very well at the moment, I think there's going to be a few rumours. I mean, we've seen it already on the F1Chronicle.com, of course. There are a few rumours, you know, kind of flying around about Tsunoda being replaced mid-season himself by Isaac Hadjar, which I don't think it'd help. I don't think it's the right move by any means. But yeah, he's got a extremely difficult job tomorrow to get points. I think he's going to need to get points, really. But from the back, it's going to be difficult. He's done it before, of course, did it at Imola. But yeah, just move on really from that one. Not good for him. But it was a great qualifying session for Gabriel Bortoleto. P12, his highest start in Formula 1 since joining as a rookie this season. Very, very good job. Solidly beat his teammate Nico Hülkenberg. Made it comfortably into Q2 and not that far off of Q3 in a Sauber. Very, very impressive. He's got an outside shot of points. I would expect him to drop back though as the race goes on personally. No disrespect to Gabby. You know I like him. You guys already know that. At the end of the day, you know, he's not in the best car at all. People online are normally describing the Sauber Formula 1 car this year as a green and black tractor, which... bit harsh, but I can see the logic. I can see the logic personally. But yeah, good for Sauber, at least in the hands of Bortoleto. Great for McLaren, though. Third thing that we learned, it's a McLaren 1-2. Kind of as we expected, really. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, a traditional testing venue for Formula 1. Of course, not a place we went for pre-season testing this year. But, you know, the drivers know it like the back of their hands. And very much, you need a great car here to succeed. You do normally see a Noah's Ark 2x2 formation throughout the running order. Although, to be fair, we didn't really see that today, which is pretty unusual. There wasn't, aside from, you know, the McLarens at the front, really, there wasn't really any of the other teammates that were next to each other. I don't think nobody who comes into mind anyway. So yeah, but incredible for them. Piastri and Lando Norris. Piastri got pole position by 2 tenths ahead of Lando Norris. But yeah, the gamesmanship between the two McLarens in qualifying was fascinating to me this year. In Q3, you know, normally you want to give your teammate a tow to try and help them down the pit straight, but none of that today. None of that today between the two McLarens. Absolutely no chance of it, because they both know that realistically it was going to be one of them two on pole position. You know, Oscar Piastri finished his hot lap, his first one, and immediately pulled over to the side because Lando Norris was trying to stick with him and get a tow for his push lap. Very clever from both of them. Great awareness as well from Piastri to spot that and not give his teammate any kind of advantage, and it worked because in the end Oscar Piastri got pole position and is the heavy favourite for the win tomorrow. But as Lando Norris knows from last year, pole position does not guarantee you a victory. It's a very long run down into the first corner. I think the longest actually of any track on the calendar. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting tomorrow between the two McLarens. But don't write off Max Verstappen and George Russell, who were 3rd and 4th respectively, and they set the exact same time to the 1,000th of a second. Incredibly close between these two drivers. It's going to be a great battle between them tomorrow. Verstappen, of course, is on an incredible run right now at the Circuit de Catalunya. I think he's won the last 3 in a row. Might be going for the 4th in a row this year. I think it is the 4th in a row he's going for this year. So it's a good track for him. He's going to have a very difficult job to try and beat the McLarens, who, like I said, were looking pretty much untouchable today. But qualifying is one thing and the race is another. Now, Fernando Alonso will be hoping for more of the same in the race tomorrow. He did manage to make it into the top 10 again for Aston Martin. Only qualifying in P10. However, he only set 1 lap in Q3. I have to assume that he only had 1 set of new soft tyres to be able to use. That's why he only set 1 lap. And he did go to P5 provisionally. With that, he was waving to the crowd. I think he was very much hoping he was going to be a bit further up the order, but still P10 is a decent result. And please, por favor, gods of racing, give the guy some points tomorrow. I really want to see it. I'm not even that big of a fan of Fernando Alonso, but my goodness me, is he an incredible driver. Anybody who knows anything about racing has to respect this guy for his achievements in Formula 1, and you just want to see him score points. He can't go pointless through this season. He can't be outscored by Lance Stroll. It can't happen. I'm not allowing it. It is not feasible. But guys, those were the 5 things that we learned from qualifying today. What were yours? Let us know in the comments below. Who's getting the win tomorrow? I said that it was going to be Oscar Piastri before the weekend started, and I'm sticking with that, especially since he got pole position today. But of course, Lando Norris cannot be discounted, just like Russell and Max Verstappen as well. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more of this, guys, and have a fantastic day wherever you're on the world today, guys, and we'll see you very soon for some more Formula 1 content throughout the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, just like this.